Welcome to Driven by Dreams. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Jessica Yahfoufi, an author, creator, and entrepreneur whose work bridges imagination with business. She published her first children's book in 2017, a project that has now sold over 34,600 copies. Alongside her writing, Jessica co-founded MoneyMinx, which was later acquired by Art of Finance, where she led content marketing before returning to writing full-time. She's now working on her debut adult novel, bringing her signature warmth and creativity to a whole new audience. Let's dive in. Hi, Jessica. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, before we go deep, let's start with a fun rapid fire round so listeners can get to know you a bit better.
Okay.
So, night owl or early bird when writing?
Early bird.
Favorite children's book from your own collection?
My favorite children's book is Big Brothers Are Superheroes, but the blended family version.
Coffee, tea, or something else to kick off the day?
I am currently trying to quit coffee, but coffee's still my favorite.
One word that describes your creative process?
Messy.
A hobby outside of writing that fuels your imagination?
Dance.
Well, love those insights. So now let's go deeper into your entrepreneurial journey.
Okay.
So could you share a bit about that?
Yeah. So I originally went to UCSD and I studied cognitive science. And the cool thing about that is you study how people think, how the mind works. And I've been able to apply that in every role I've ever had. So most recently, I was a director of marketing. Back during COVID days, my husband started this startup company and I started helping him with that. And then we sold it to a bigger startup company. But we went ahead and we worked for them for, I think it was 3 years for me and 4 years for my husband. So I was the director of marketing there and I worked on content marketing. I did podcasts like you're doing right now. And I did a lot of executive ghostwriting and things like that. And it was in the investment space. But I'm really a creative. I have written all these books and I really wanted to get back to that. So I decided I would take a chance on doing writing full time. And so as of I think April, I've been a full-time writer. So I've got 7 children's books that are published, and I've got my debut fiction novel coming out in early 2026.
You mentioned that writing was a messy process for you.
Yeah.
So how did your first children's book come to life and what inspired the story?
So when I was pregnant with my daughter, which was about 10 years ago, I wanted to get a Big Brother book for my stepson, but there was no books on the market that didn't say, hey, when mom had you, it was like this, and now they're having a baby. And I wanted to have, a book for him that kind of respected his mom and respected him and also me, right? Because he's an important part of family, even though there's 2 sides to it. So I went ahead and wrote it and I wanted it to feel substantial and real. So I went ahead and published it so that he had a real book to open and read. And so it started with that. I didn't really think much of it. And then some of my friends saw it and they said, well, can you do another one which maybe doesn't have a step parent and has a bio parent? And so I was like, all right. So I did that. And then I was pregnant with a little boy and I was like, all right, well, my daughter needs a book, right? So then I wrote another book for her. And so it just kind of kept pressing in that way. And so strangely, I really didn't think that much of it. It was just a labor of love. I started seeing the sales tick up and I was like, wait a minute, I sold 100 books this month. Like, how did that happen? And so then I started thinking, let me pay a little bit more attention to this book. So I started doing Amazon ads, word of mouth. I was interviewed by some radio stations. And so now my best-selling book, which is the Big Brother book, has sold about, I think 32,000 copies. And so if you're traditionally published and you've kind of got like a mid-level book, you usually sell between 3,000 and 5,000 copies. So this book has been, really successful by anybody's measure. Yeah, so that's kind of how that went. It was like a labor of love. And then when it started doing well, I just started giving it more and more attention and I was able to turn that into a business.
That's amazing.
Thank you. You have a story in mind, do it.
Were you always interested in writing since you were young, or was that something you developed the interest for later on?
I think I've always been interested in it. When you're in marketing, you have to write. There's just no way around it. That's a big part of like the communication aspect. And in most of my jobs, I've been an executive ghostwriter. So I've written speeches, social media content. I've written a few articles that were published in, big media outlets, but it was always under someone else's name, right? And so it's kind of like, what happens if I'm writing in my own name? So I wanted to give that a shot. But it's sometimes, I think some people know exactly what they want to do when they're young and they shoot for it and they're working on it. My path has been kind of like, ooh, this looks interesting. Let me go down that path. Oh, that looks interesting. Let me go down that path. And so that's what I mean. My career has been pretty messy.
Do you have any advice for people who don't know since from when they're young what they want to do?
If I could give myself some advice, I would say you don't have to worry about it. I think your generation is growing up with technology and AI that did not exist when I was a kid, right? Like email started becoming a big thing when I was in college. And so I never would have dreamed all of the opportunities that are available now were even available then. So I think sometimes when you're like, the pressure that's put on young people, and I need to know my major, I need to know exactly what I'm going to do. Maybe not. I mean, sometimes you come upon an opportunity and it's really exciting, and then you need a little bit of time to feel it and get into it. So I would say maybe think through the things that you have a natural knack for, because that means it comes easy to you. And then things you're interested in, because those are the things you're going to want to do. And then find some way to put them together.
That's great advice. Thank you.
Don't stress out about it. You can always change paths later.
Thank you for that advice. I know that's something I've been stressed about as well. So that's
I
really
bet.
helpful.
Is there a lot of pressure in school to make all these decisions right now?
Well, not necessarily from school. It's the courses you're picking. It's somewhat like influenced by an idea you have of, okay, I want to go down this path. Like there are medical courses and engineering courses, and it's kind of like it would be better if you have everything figured out, like something figured out, so you know what courses to take.
Yeah. That's tough. So my stepson is a junior in high school and he's going through all of that now. But I mean, sometimes I see kids these days and I can see all the talent and they just feel stressed out. And I'm like, everything is going to work out. But it's easy to say with hindsight, you know?
What made you decide to go towards marketing? Was there a specific part of it that interested you?
Um, let's see. So when I was in college, I had my uncle was a really big influence. He's an entrepreneur. He's had several exits. He is a mechanical or an electrical engineer by trade, and he's just one of the smartest people I know. He thinks deeply about everything. And I remember sitting down with him and we were both talking about like, what are you good at and what will make sense for you? And I really wanted to do something with communication because at heart of heart, I like talking to people. And I picked cognitive science because it had a technical like edge to it. So I still had to take programming courses. I had to take neuroscience courses, but I still got to take the psychology courses, behavioral psychology kind of things. And I did a lot of user-centered design. So it was kind of like, it was figure out how the brain works, use computers to model it, and then, by UCSD, it was neuroscience isn't the only way the brain works, right? It's also language and things like that. So it was really well-rounded for me. So I did go ahead and say like, what do I want to do? But then how can I be marketable, right? Everybody wanted tech skills, and being in UX allowed me to be in tech without having to be like a super techie, which that just probably wasn't going to work for me.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned that you're writing an adult book now. So, which do you like better? Children's book, adults books? Which do you like writing
I
better?
think children's books. So those books that I wrote were for my kids, right? And it just happened to resonate with a wider audience. You need an illustrator for that. Illustrating is really hard. I did everything by myself for that book. If I ever did
Wow.
another kid's book, I would hire an illustrator. That's not my strength. Um, so it's a really big lift, and it's also very expensive to print, right? Because you have all these illustrations. For this other book that I'm writing, it's 80,000 words, but it's all text. So you can get it paperback, you can get it hardcover, but you can also just get it on an e-reader, which is really cheap and accessible for people. So I'm excited to see how that goes, but fiction is new for me. I'm a business writer. I've been writing about finance for the last 5 years and investing, which is maybe some people would say dry, even though important, right? And this is a creative endeavor. It's kind of like a modern day Dirty Dancing set in San Diego. So it's been really fun because I can go out into the world and do what I call research, right? I have to go take a dance class or I have to go see a band or like I drag my friends out to a salsa class and things like that. And so that's been very fulfilling for me. And I want to create, this book where people can just kind of escape to San Diego while they're reading it. And so I don't know, I'll let you know how it goes. It's definitely harder than I expected. often, but it's been pretty fun.
It's great. I know a lot of people say, like, as entrepreneurs, you have to wear many hats. So I bet it was like that when you had to be the illustrator and the writer.
Yeah, right now, so I wrote this book and that's just like the fun part. You're living in potential. So I've been writing and writing and writing. Then I had to do the editing part. And with editing, you have to think very logically. Like you put your, maybe this is over a generalization, but you put your creative brain aside and you're really looking for sentence structure and repeats and things like that, right? So there's that part. And now I've handed it off to like a real editor. So I get to step away from it for a minute. But while she's had that, I've built my website. I now need to be a social media expert and build an author platform so people know I exist and what I'm writing about. And so hopefully I can find the people, my readers that would like this material, right? Which is book lovers, but there are also people that love dance, people that watch maybe Dancing with the Stars or something like that. And then the next step is putting a cover together. So a lot of people hire a cover designer, which I'm kind of looking through how to do that. So there's so many layers of this, but I think through my children's book, I have some practice with it already. And I'm a marketer, right? So once I get this book done, I can actually get to the marketing strategy. So it's just kind of like many layers of figuring it all out.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun though. This is a good project.
I know even for like the writing we have to do for school, it sometimes feels like everything you write is bad and you just want to start over. Have you ever felt like that, and what do you do?
All the time. So there is a book called On Writing by Stephen King, right? So Stephen King, he does all the horror movies, right? So he has this really beautiful book about he was hired, well, he was, how was it? He was pitched the idea to write a craft book of how to write. And it's a little bit of memoir in there too. And so you're reading somebody who's maybe one of the most respected authors ever. By anybody's, measurement, he's a successful guy. I've never read his books. I'm a big wimp and I've fell asleep for weeks. But he says you need to write a crappy first draft. Like you need to write so fast that you don't have time to talk yourself out of it. So I have some friends that when they're writing, they're better writers than me. They write beautifully, right? But they write really slow because they're trying to get every sentence right. In my mind, this was such a big project, and I talked myself out because I was like, man, this is awful. I gave myself a goal to write 1,000 words every day, and I was going to try to get a whole novel written more or less crappy first draft, right, in 1 month. So I just kept writing every time I got stuck. How do I solve this problem? Why is my character doing this? And I was like, I'm just going to put a placeholder in here. I stuck a tag on it, and I just kept going. And that was the best way for me. And then you go back and you revise it, because once you have the whole thing done, you're like, all right, this is how it needs to go. So I went through 6 revisions before I gave it to my editor. So it was pretty big. And I took a startup approach to it. So the whole point was get it done as fast as possible for a minimum viable product, right? And then I would pivot and change whatever I needed to do to get to the end. And I put that book in front of 3 very trusted readers in the beginning so I could get their feedback if they would say, no, this is so boring, or this is this is a vanity project. You're really loving it, but nobody's going to read it. And so, but I needed that, right? Because I didn't want to waste time. And I'm not writing because oh, this is the only thing I want to do. I'd rather be doing this for work. So I had to make sure I'm writing to market. So I ran it by these 3 people, and they basically said, these are all the bones. This is really good. This is the part I love. This is the part that's missing. And so it gave me a blueprint on what I had to do next. And so I think that's a good idea to do with writing. Get it out of your brain as fast as you can. And then you edit and iterate on it. And don't use ChatGPT too early, because I know a lot of young people are doing that, and it takes the thinking process out of writing. So if you want to use it to edit or to brainstorm or whatever, but really the act of writing is so good for your mind. And yeah, that's probably what I would say. But just get the nonsense out as fast as you can. Just get it out on the paper.
You mentioned 6 revisions. Was that for your adult book, or?
Yeah.
That must be,
Yes.
is it a long book?
So it's 80,000 words.
Oh.
So it's pretty long. I've never written anything that long. Even in college, I'm trying to think back to my college days, I think it was like a 15, 20-page paper or something like this. I mean, this thing is hefty. Google Google Docs can't handle it. It starts going really slow. So I had to break it up into chapters. Then I had to find new software so you can write kind of like chapter by chapter, scene by scene. Yeah. yeah, but it's just really long. But it was revising 80,000 words 6 times.
So if you ever wanted to change one part, you would have to change the rest too?
There's a lot of that because if you when you're writing something that long, you want like foreshadowing maybe or something to echo back, and you need themes to kind of run through. But those don't, for me, they don't become clear until it's done, and you're like, oh, but I can do this really cool thing with it, right? But then every change you make, you have to kind of go through. So for instance, I had named my character. This is really minimal, right? This isn't like a structural change. But if you name a character and then you're thinking, oh, wait a minute, maybe that doesn't work. Like you need to change those characters. You can't have too many characters that sound alike because then the reader will confuse them. So that kind of became a thing. In the beginning, I wanted everything to be realistic. So the places, the people, the sports teams I mentioned in San Diego, all of that, I called it the real thing, right? The San Diego Sockers or like the Wave FC. But then I was like, maybe, I don't have their permission. So maybe I have to change that a little bit and call it something suggesting they would be all those things. And then it kind of like changes throughout. Or like right now, my editor is looking through there and she's like, what's the timing exactly? Like in this place, you say this story happens over 4 months, and over here, it sounds like it happens in a year. But depending on what I change to tighten it up, it changes the whole thing, right? Because San Diego has the whole story is set in San Diego. San Diego has summer months, but then we have like the San Diego summer months, like the local months where, after all the tourists leave. And that's where out of towners feel like it's really different here. So that kind of thing, I still have to fix it.
Well, that sounds like a hard process.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's good. People wouldn't do it otherwise. People love writing.
Well, I have a question for you that I've always wanted to ask an author. So, in school, they make us do this whole thing where you look at the themes of a book and you analyze every single thing. So, when you're writing, do you write with those in mind?
I don't know for everybody, but for me, there were some themes that I wanted to explore through this book. And because this book takes place in San Diego and in the salsa community, I really wanted to show the experiences I've had in the salsa community. So there's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of the music, like there's local music here that's just so great, like B-side players. There's Sabrosa Latina Orchestra, which is like all women's orchestra. And there's some songs, like the best part, maybe not the best, that's not fair to say. Like, edit that out. No, just kidding. But some of the most important salsa music happened like in the 50s and the 60s, like it's older, right? So people are listening to that over and over and are really familiar with it. And then you have things like Bad Bunny with this phenomenon, right? And so it's like kind of bringing salsa back into the forefront again. So there's music people love, and when they hear it, they have associations with it. So for me, I wanted to put enough music in this book that when people hear it, they're like, oh, I know what's going to happen in this chapter, right? And so that is what I wrote for people that love salsa, so they know that the person that's writing really knows it. I'm writing from an inside perspective, but I don't want to leave out people that don't know salsa, right? Like, how can it be accessible? So I was writing that, and I was kind of going through that. And one of the themes is also like the importance of connection and reading your partner and having conversation without words. So these were themes I was exploring throughout, and how dance can offer playfulness for people, which as you get older, a lot of times people stop playing because they're working all the time. They're raising kids. Like, it's really important to play in order to stay young and enjoy your life. And I personally think dance is the way to do it, right? So I'm writing all this stuff. I don't know if it's going to land, right? And so I give it to my beta readers to see if it's going to land. It sounds like it does, but then they're telling me things that they're noticing the story that I didn't even realize. So I think I was kind of weaving it through because it makes sense. And in the dance community, that just kind of comes through. So I think some things you plan, some things just kind of evolve, and then some things you want to go back in and add it in. So somebody will say something to me sometimes. My editor right now is like, oh, I like how you do this. I'm like, okay, I got to lean into that and make sure that's coming all the way through. So all of it, I guess.
How do you select your beta readers? Like, are they all from like different age groups, different backgrounds?
Yeah, there's different ways you can do it. For me, I call it the book club, but I have a group of friends who are all authors or writers. Like, one of them is a screenwriter, a screenplay writer. And so I asked two people that I know. One writes in the genre and one writes in a very different genre, but she thinks cinematically. And in my mind, I'm like, all right, my book's going to be made into a movie one day. Let me get her opinion on it, right? And then I asked my husband, because there's elements of San Diego that he's really familiar with that he can read. And he's kind of like, this doesn't, plus he doesn't know squat about dance, right? So he's reading this and he's going, this doesn't make sense, or that kind of thing. So I had 3 trusted close people. Once I get the edits back from my official editor, I'll go ahead and recruit another group of readers that are wider. So I talk about this book all the time. I think it's just really fun. So when people hear about it, they show interest. I ask them, hey, do you want to be an early reader? And so I have a list of people and I'll reach out. So I grew up in New York. I have some friends out there that are Spanish teachers, that dance salsa, that have moved. And so they'll have a particular perspective that I want. I want to know what like a salsera like cares about, right? I want to make sure that I got all the Spanish correct in the book. My family's Spanish and Italian, but I grew up here, so it's like I want to make sure that I'm representing everybody well. And then finally, when you are ready to publish your book, you get something called ARC readers, which are advanced reader copy readers, and you can recruit these people from maybe anywhere. I'm connected to a lot of them on Instagram. So once I'm ready to share it and I would like people to review it, I'll just kind of put it out there to the world and see who'll read it.
Do you self-publish your books?
I'm going to self-publish this one. I self-published the original ones because I wasn't planning on doing anything with them. So I feel very lucky about that. And that with this one, I met with an editor much earlier this year, and I talked about the pros and cons of traditional publishing or going after a book deal. I might go after a book deal later on, but I really want to get this first one done myself because I'm a marketer and I want to be able to market it. Generally, if you traditionally publish, you have that publishing house handles all of that. They also pair you with an editor, and so you start having someone else making decisions, which is 100% great. But I really want to try to do this one without any help.
What would you say are the pros and cons that you went over?
In traditionally publishing and not?
Yeah.
I think traditionally publishing, people have this idea that there's more cachet with that because you landed a book deal, right? With some publisher, which is amazing. And then you can be in like Barnes and Noble or something like that. But I think with all of the tools that are available to do self-publishing, if you have the interest to market your book, you can make more money because you don't have to give a cut to as many people. And so really you're keeping more of your money and you're in more control. So it really just depends on what you want to do. Yeah. But there's a lot of people who started out self-publishing. Like, have you ever heard of Colleen Hoover? That movie just came out called It Ends With Us. Blake Lively was in it. There was this big movie that came out, but it was based on a book by an author who started as a self-published indie author and then got picked up later. So a lot of people kind of go through this path. It just depends on what you want to do. For me, if I went ahead and pitched myself to an agent and then got picked up by a book publishing company, I'd be a year or 2 out to be able to actually publish. And for me, I'm going to probably publish early next year. But it also means you have to do all the work. You have to do all of it. You have to find an editor. You need to go through that whole process. You need to find a book designer. You need someone to design the interior of your book. And you can do all these things by yourself, but it really just depends on what you want to do. It's a lot more work to self-publish.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to market their book?
I would say get to know the genre and like take a look at what other people are doing. I mean, you can kind of model after what other people are doing instead of completely starting from scratch. You want to get to know your readers. I think writing to market's really important if you're looking at it as a business. If you want to write a book because you're like, I've always wanted to write a book and I have this really great idea and it's like my heart song. That's a little bit different than I want to write books that are going to make money, right? Like my Big Brother book makes money. That book does really well. It's a superhero book. It's very inclusive. It has kids from all different backgrounds in it. It's bright. It's easy. You can like beat it up. So it's for young kids. My Big Sister book doesn't do as well. It also is a superhero book, but the books that sell the best, this breaks my heart to say, the books that sell the best in Big Sister category are generally like princessy. They're promoted to Big Sis, not your superhero. So there's like different messaging that happens. And part of me is like, man, if I redo that book a little bit and make it more about nurturing instead of superheroes, it might sell better. But I don't want to do that. I want to have a superhero book for girls. I think Big Sisters are superheroes too, right? So, I mean, that was a heart song though, right? Like I wanted to do that my way, where this fiction book, I'm taking a look at like, what do I want to write? But then what do readers want to do? And trying to match that if you want to try to, make a business out of it is really important. But that's for any business, right? You need to meet the needs of your customer.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Jessica. It's been great talking to you. Do you have any final words of wisdom for our audience?
I would say are most of your audience is students. And
Yeah.
that, like, experiment, like, try things. The best thing you could do is try things. The very first job I get when I moved to California, and I was 19, I did 2 years of school in New York, and I came out here, and it was so different. I was like, wow, I'm going to go move to California. And I had an aunt and uncle that lived here with no kids. So they were like, sweet, I have a project. I'm going to help this girl out. And I got a job at a startup company. It was called Music Match. It was kind of like the beginning of music streaming. Now everybody like has iTunes and everything, but this is like way back in the day. I took everybody there out to lunch. I mean, I was a kid. I was like 18 or 19. And I went out with them and I asked them, what did you study and what do you do now? Because I wanted to know how they spent their day. Kind of like what you're doing, right? You're probably getting so many insights of what people are doing because a lot of young people, you don't know, right? You're like, okay, there's teacher, there's doctor, there's lawyer, there's engineer. Those are usually the parent stresses, right? And then there's all these other things you could do. I never knew there was like a UX designer. Like, what does that even mean, right? So with cognitive science, I could get into UX design. And my first job out of college, I was designing future vehicle concepts for Nissan. Like, does that even exist? Who would even know that, right? So if you can get a hold of people and ask them what they're doing and then experiment, that's probably the best way to go, right? I loved cognitive science. I loved all the opportunities it gave me, but I think it was because I picked that because I talked to so many people to figure out what would be great, right? Like I really wouldn't have been happy studying engineering in school, like 100%, but I still got a little bit, right? Just like enough to be marketable. So I think you should keep doing what you're doing. Like interview as many people like from diverse backgrounds as you can and try to find like discover all these jobs that like who would have even known, right? I
Thank you
think
so much, Jessica.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry, what were you saying?
I was gonna say my mom has written think she's written 2 books. Maybe, nope, she's written 3 books, but self-publishing the way I'm doing it didn't exist when she was younger, right? So the way, if you use KDP or Ingram Spark, it's all print on demand. So you don't have to buy a big inventory and then sell it. People can order it online and then it's sent from a publisher, right? So that didn't exist, right? So that made it very easy for me to do. When my mom was writing books, it was a whole other world. And a lot of times you wanted to be traditionally published because it was the only way, right? So it's like, who wouldn't even know that exists? So for you, it's like, what opportunities are happening with AI? That's changing the world, right? I went from so I was doing all the content marketing for Art of Finance and I was writing it all. And then AI came and I found like I could write and then use AI to like triple my output. It couldn't write. It's not like you can't just have it write for you, but it can speed up so much of the process, right? But that didn't even exist when I was a kid. So I think go out and ask everybody their story and try to find out, like unearth all these like really cool jobs. And you're doing that for all your peers, which is very cool. And I hope you find like a whole bunch of opportunities you didn't know existed.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you so much for sharing your story and insights. I really appreciate it.
Great to talk to you. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.